Hello? Can anybody hear me?
Hello. I
Hello.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can
Yes.
now. Yeah, absolutely.
What? Yes, Dick.
Okay, let's turn off that. We're waiting on a couple people. Um, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I did post submissions on the website. So if you want to read along, you can.
Awesome, fantastic. That is always helpful when I
I
can
did
actually
see
see
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see if I can get my glasses to work. There we go. Who are we waiting on? We have several people tonight. We are waiting on Vespira and Sophie.
So I noticed there was a story between mine and Wolf's, but there was no header.
Well, they didn't provide anything. So that's probably Sophie's, and she didn't provide. Like, you guys are used. I think, and I'll talk about it tonight. But you guys are used to it, so you know to give the header, and because I don't have time to be formatting and being crazy, so I copy paste into it. But we will definitely address that because
Yep, there's
Vespira,
two pieces.
yeah, Vespira didn't give me a header either. Um, there we go. There's
Panicky.
Vespira. Hello, Vespira.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Yay. I was panicking.
So we
So
are
I'm
just
sorry.
waiting on. No, you're fine. We're waiting on Sophie. So I'm sure she'll be here shortly. She was one of the first people to send a piece over, so I know that she's on board. We lost Vespira. Yes, this is different than TikTok, so it takes some getting used to. Wolf,
Hello.
what is it going to take to get you on camera for YouTube?
Um. Uh.
It's okay. You can tell me nothing, Neil. You can say nothing is going to get me there, so it's okay.
Yeah. Nothing. Sorry.
Okay, it's okay. Um, just don't say anything when I prod the other people as well. Okay, there's Vespira again.
Wolf
You
is wanted
disappeared.
in 3 systems.
What?
I said Wolf is a wanted man in 3 systems.
Yes, he is. I'm sure.
I mean, I have so many names. I'm Wolf, but I'm also Collective, but I'm also this and that. So I like my.
You're also father.
Yes, I am also father. Yes. Because what do you call it? Father is kind of like my title with my pet name. FON is Father of Nightmares, and then Wolf Lovelace. And so, yes, I am the father. Originally, I was actually going to go with my full pen name being Father, but then I realized that people might think that I'm ordained, and I'm not.
You could fix that pretty quick on the internet.
Oh, I could very quickly.
Yeah. Okay, we have a problem that Vespira disappeared again. At some point, we're going to have to get started. And let me see. I'm going to just check in with folks here real quick. Like, for example, Sophie. Are you coming? There's Sophie. Sophie!
Hello.
Hello. We have we're just waiting on Vespira, who keeps like hopping on and dropping off. But
Oh no! I
perhaps-
wonder if there is it technical difficulties or.
I don't know. She hasn't said.
Hmm.
But we may get started and just like have her pop up. Two things to cover real quick. The first is, Sophie, when you send me your pieces,
Yes.
at the top of I need two things from you. One, please don't do it as an attachment. Just like
Okay.
copy paste it into the email. And two, at the top, give me your author name and your and the title of your piece.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is, number two, for those of you that are new to the group or whatever, I have posted all the pieces on my website. So if you go to gavingale.com and if you click on Writers Group, there's a button at the bottom that says Read Submissions, and that will have everybody's submission. And the reason I ask you to give me your name, your author name, and your title of your piece is because that goes at the header. And if you go and look on that website, you'll see how that kind of is formatted. And I have a full-time job on top of all this. So like I just copy paste whatever is
Okay.
there. So if it doesn't have anything, then I don't have anything. Vespira, you keep popping on and dropping off. Are you okay? Or is it technical issues or? And there she went. Okay. All right. We are going to go ahead and get started. And let me take a look real quick. That is right there. I think the first person I have reading is Wolf. Yep. Wolf is first in the queue. So, Wolf, why don't you go ahead and get started with your piece?
Okie dokie. Neil, you didn't tell everybody what the prompt was for the audience.
Oh, okay. So for the audience, thank you, Wolf. For the audience, the prompt this week was a character study. So what I wanted was, I wanted 1,500 words focusing on like getting us to know a character and who they are. So I'm not interested in what they look like. I don't need to know that they walked in and had hair of gold and eyes of blue and they wore, a trench coat, anything like that. I want to know who this person is, but I don't want you to just describe them with words. I want you to do the show don't tell thing, right? And show us your character so that by the end of the 1,500 words, we know this person. So that was the prompt. Wolf, you're up first.
I am up first. Does Wolf have to go first? I'm kidding. I'm joking.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm Wolf. Hello. I'm going to be reading my piece, which I called Disassociate, Scroll, and Dissect. And there's a content warning. There is drug use, implications of suicidal ideation, depictions of mental wellness struggles, and discussions of relationship struggles. Just want to throw it out there. Okay. Just another one of those days. Disassociating, scrolling, attempting to bury away any feeling that comes to the surface, like a hostage in a basement banging at the floorboards. If I pretend I don't hear the knocking, and I can pretend that I don't feel. Flipping through Pendulum. Hi guys! Flip. Millennial pause. Flip. You will not believe. Shaky camera. Flip. Live showcase. A camera displays a room only lit up by rope lights on the wall, making the room dark purple with the curtains drawn over the windows. Looking at my windows, it's evening. So why are your curtains drawn and why is your chair empty? How many viewers do you have? None. Me. Quirius joins the showcase. Staring at an empty chair, while a game on the bottom screen remains idle. Despite the dimness of the room, a keyboard lights up rainbow colors. A cubby bookshelf with figurines on it, various video game characters, all of them being of Nicoletta of the Princess Designer saga. A door opens, bathing the room in a bright orange light, exposing a mannequin bust in the room's corner with the makings of a piece in the works, with bits of fabric pinned to it. A sewing machine on a small table tucked and barely in view. Outside of the room, loud techno blares drowning out the ambient, cozy fantasy soundtrack being played in the room. Please keep it down, I'm streaming. You don't even have an audience! The rest of the words are drowned out as they close the door. Someone's carrying a plate over to the computer. Sorry, I'm back, replies an individual, illuminated by the blue light of their monitor and glasses that reflect the light of their camera. There's a sigh of disappointment. Are you lonely too? I type a comment. Quirius. Hi, I'm here. Oh, hi, Quirius. That's a cute username. I'm Cleo, duh, it's my name, Sprite K. They laugh. Quirius. What are you playing? Oh my god. So are you familiar with the Princess Designer saga? It's some of the best fantasy exists in the gaming industry, and everyone just thinks it's a silly game where you collect articles of clothing, which yes, that's true. But it has a storyline geared toward adult women mainly, but Nicoletta is the cutest. Quirius. The series has always been known for its in-depth politics. So you have heard of the series. It's what inspired me to be a designer. Are you going to any cons or have you any interest in cons? Sorry, you probably want me to shut up and just play the game. Quirius. We can also just talk. Oh, sure. What are you doing? They finally begin adjusting their plate, lifting up bunny-shaped crackers to the camera. I got a snack. They reach for some wipes. I'll wipe my hands off before touching my keyboard. Promise. Quirius. I mean, nothing much. Besides talking with you and watching you. Taking a moment to pause, putting my phone down briefly, to reach over to the side of my nightstand, to pour myself another glass. Cleo, huh? You're kind of the most interesting person I've come across. The house is quiet, and there's no one here besides me and my demons of guilt. I hear them scratching at the door, staring at the red wallpaper briefly, almost having to acknowledge that I'm alive and that I exist. Well, thank you. I don't get very many viewers. Picking up my phone with my right hand. Quirius. Well, do you have a streaming schedule? I do. Quirius has followed Sprite K. Quirius. And I look forward to them. Oh, thank you. You didn't have to. Their voice goes quiet. One moment. The camera goes dark. The live showcase has been paused. Putting down my phone again. I don't have much of a purpose anymore. The little things I've done to motivate myself don't seem to work anymore. My engagement is falling apart. I know it. I can feel it. Loving her is like bathing in acid. We don't make each other healthy, and I push Charlie away. Now what am I doing? In my infinite loop of loneliness, I'm just using another person to chase away my permanent state of dejection. Okay, back, they sniff. Thank you. Do you like games? They grab a cracker but only play with it between their fingers. Their nails are done. It's hard to tell what color they've been painted, but there's a design on them made of fake jewels. Curious. Mostly detective puzzle games. Do you play Cold Case? Don't get too excited. You just disappoint people. Remain at a distance. Don't put too much investment into what's going to be another parasocial relationship. Aquarius. Yes. Are you excited for the new expansion? They seemingly forgotten that they're playing a game. Instead, they're lining up their bunny crackers in various vignettes before having them hop off, sometimes in their mouth or back on the plate. Aquarius. Yes, wink. I think you are, they declare with certainty. Aquarius. What makes you think that? Because you brought it up. They laugh. How old are you? Aquarius. 34. You. Pronouns. She, her. Yours? 31. Aquarius. He, him, they, them. She has a bunny across the camera, hopping in front of the lens. What do you do for work? You don't have to answer it if you don't want to. Aquarius. Aquarius. I'm a private investigator by technicality, but that doesn't really mean much, does it? By a technicality? What? That's so cool, though. She's practically standing out of her chair. You're the coolest person who's entered my stream. Am I really? I wonder if she'd think that if she knew how many people my inability to help them has gotten them killed. I'm really not the coolest. I put down my phone to grab my neglected glass. I wish I was drinking antifreeze, honestly. What am I living, or who am I living for? I don't know anymore what my purpose is. Some people saw value in my life, and I provided no value. Putting down my glass on the nightstand, picking up my phone again. Curious. I am shit at it. What makes you say that? I leave the life, leaving her hanging. She shouldn't have high expectations for me like that. She shouldn't have any expectations of me, really. It was foolish to have done that, to have talked to her. In the end of the day, I couldn't be what she needs or wants as a friend. I have that case in August, and that's the only thing keeping me going. That's in 2 months. Staring at the phone. She had no one watching her stream. She was passionate too. And when they don't know me, they seem to view me in higher regards than what I'm worth.
Wow. Well, Wolf, did you really write that for group tonight?
I did.
So I definitely got a picture of who your character is, and I felt very called out. But it I mean, you understood the assignment for sure. There was no description of appearance, and nothing specifically telling us who the person was, and yet we know that they're lonely. They have low self-esteem. They are competent at their job because it's their job, and they can afford to have a place to live and internet. But they're looking for, solace online and some kind of connection. I do have to say, I'm not going to dive too much deeper because I want to let other people have a chance to say things. I don't have a whole lot of criticism. I'll try to think of something to criticize before we move on, but I'm kind of stuck at the moment. I do have to say though that you have read for yourself on this group for a while now, and it wasn't until tonight that I was like, wow, like when you have a piece that you are clearly like engaged with, like I would listen to you read any book. I would like you could narrate audiobooks and I would listen. Like your range just in that was amazing. So I am going to pass it along to Scott, and Scott can hopefully give you some better criticism, and then we'll go on from there.
Okay, first of all, you're cheating because you were only supposed to do one character, and there are two characters in here that I am fascinated by, and who I feel you did a really good job of revealing without leaning on telling us about them and just showing us. Because I know what it's like to be that person that is having that showcase and not having anybody in the room. What's worse than that is having a reading at a convention, and I'm not sure if it's worse having no one show up or having one person show up, but I've had both things happen, and I'm still not sure which is worse. And then, of course, I know what it's like to be that person who's disassociating, just doom scrolling, and finding that one person who has no audience and kind of being their audience for a while, and then being in that headspace where you're like, I shouldn't get involved with this person because then they're going to find out what I'm really like, and I'm just going to be a disappointment to them. So, yeah, this was really well done. I now kind of want to know what Quirius's case is. I want to know what it means to be a private investigator by a technicality. I have a private investigator character who is also, well, he's kind of the opposite. He's not a private investigator by a technicality. So I want to know what it means to be a private investigator by a technicality. So yeah, you've done that thing that is hard for a lot of writers to do, which is introduce these characters, give us a lens into their world and their interior life, without giving us that much, narrative or narrator voice. So I don't really have a whole lot of commentary. I do like the way, once again, I like the way you played with formatting, letting us know what was chat effectively, and what was kind of the interior monologue of Quirius. And I like the way they described the other person playing with the bunny crackers. So yeah, well done. I guess if I had anything to add, gosh, the opening of it wasn't. There were bits of the opening of it that I didn't get. Like, I don't know what a millennial pause is. So I'm probably just showing my age more than anything else. but other than the first few lines of it being not unclear, but perhaps a little hard to penetrate for me personally, I think overall it was great.
All right, thank you, Scott. I will call out the one thing that Scott was talking about formatting. The one thing that I found distracting as I was reading along was that for Quirius, you always put Quirius : and then what they said, and for I can't even remember the other character's name, but Cleo, thank you. You didn't do that, and maybe you're mimicking a format online that I'm not familiar with, but for me it was a little confusing that Quirius got the call out as to what his text was, but Cleo didn't. I am going to pass it along to
Okay.
yeah,
Um.
Stephanie or Sophie.
haha.
Sophie, got it. Ha
Sophie.
ha ha. Sophie.
I'm my review of this is a little bit shorter. I loved it. I enjoyed it fully. I have a really hard time writing things that are online versus in person. Like, I'm constantly trying to get my characters in a room together, and writing for the screen and having a little screen, or if they were talking on a phone or texting, that's very hard for me. So kudos to you, the fact that you could do that. And I don't know why I can't do that, because I've been in lives before and I've had that kind of sensation of going in and having a really profound conversation. But yeah, great job.
Hey, can I have a quick sidebar with Sophie?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sophie, you're a screenwriter, right?
Yes.
Can you tell any and all of your friends in that TV and movie world that if they're going to have a chat session or a texting session on screen and expect us to read it, they need to do a better job. Because one of my pet peeves is if you're going to have a something like this or a texting on a phone and it's important to the plot and you're not going to have it somehow read out loud, which wouldn't be appropriate. You've got to make it big on the screen somehow and make it diegetic, I think is maybe the right
Yeah.
word.
Yeah.
Oh,
and I totally agree with you.
So
yeah, I totally agree with you.
That's
Yeah.
my sidebar.
Except that's just for us old people. Like, the young people do not have a problem with it, right? Like, if they're in their 20s, early 30s, or certainly in their teens, like, they don't have a problem reading that fast and
Yeah,
reading,
but we
like,
have money. They don't.
yeah, but they're what's cool.
Fair play.
Yeah.
Fair play.
Okay, Vespira, what do you have to offer?
Wolf's just doing his thing.
That is the most succinct feedback. It's perfect.
And true.
Yeah. All right.
Wolf is
Well,
always has like really good pieces.
yeah.
I don't have anything negative.
Okay. Okay. Well, then we are going to move on to the next story.
Wolf
And-
doesn't have anything to say.
No, Scott, you don't get to talk about your own piece. Yes, of course, Wolf. I'm sorry. I forget my own damn format sometimes.
Wolf is out here remembering everybody's formats of their own show. I'm kidding. So Scott, I would like you to know that you could probably know more about this technical private investigator because it half cheated. This is well, it was going to become a bonus chapter for my book because this is Spencer and his love interest and how they met, and I had to write it anyway because I write myself background information, so I know like what how things happened. So I admit Wolf cheated. um, but also
You also lied to me.
what do you mean lied to you?
Not as bad as I did.
I literally just asked you if you wrote this piece for group.
Yes, I did write it for group.
Okay.
But they also wrote it for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. It's still purpose.
Okay. Well then I cheated in exactly the same way tonight. So no,
I did too.
no
Forewarning.
Oh, okay. So we all cheated. See, look at that. I knew it. Oh, what do you call it? And then yeah, Scott, your age is showing, and I'm not gonna even think. So what do you call it? I admit that the maybe some of the lingo in here is very like something that most people will understand at a younger audience. So the whole entire millennial pause is that individuals who are at a certain age in millennial, before they start talking in their videos, they literally pause and then they're like, "Oh, hello."
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I have heard that.
Yeah.
When I first got on TikTok, I heard that every once in a while.
So that's what the millennial pause is. But yeah, so this was just literally a thing, and yes, that's it. Wolf cheated. I'm not gonna lie. I was just like I wanted to figure out how Spencer and Cleo had met initially anyway, and I was just like, oh, this. I hadn't even written it yet, is the thing. And I saw the prompt, and I'm like, oh, the prompt is giving me an excuse.
Well, I also want to pile on with the whole like private detective by accident kind of thing, in that my third book, well, what was supposed to be my third book and is probably now going to be my fourth book, but Bishop Church, there's a whole thing like throughout the whole book. It's a running gag that everyone's like, "You're Bishop Church, PI, like you're a private investigator, you're a private dick," and he's like, "No, private investigators are licensed. I'm just like a helper. Like I just like I'll mow your lawn for $20. Like, but he's a PI, but he doesn't have a license, so he like is constantly reminding people.
You can get into big trouble.
Yeah.
So the state for being that.
He's constantly reminding people that he's not a private investigator.
Yeah.
So
that's funny.
For a novel that I'm working on, I had to research that in Louisiana. And I'm sure it's different in every state, but in Louisiana, you can get into big trouble for performing the duties of a private investigator without a private investigator license.
Yep.
What do you call it, Spencer? What do you call it? It says private investigator or private detective by technicality because he's my books are anti-cop, and he would rather not work with the cops, but sometimes he's forced to do so. So that's why he's like a private detective, private investigator by technicality, because I don't actually want to have the power of justice or arrest, but I also like need to do these things.
Right. All right. Well, that being said, we're going to move on now. And Sophie, your piece is next. Are you reading or being read?
Can you read it?
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
I'm going to put myself up, and then I am going to give myself your lower third.
Okay.
Okay. The sensation of laying in hot, sticky, thick, warm to the touch goo, slurping, sucking sounds whenever there was movement. The smell of blood turned sickly sweet, like hot red, shiny, slick candy. The taste of hot cherry pie, sickeningly sweet in the nostrils, making the stomach lurch and churn, wanting to vomit out your fears and insecurities of this life. Maddie woke up with a start, her heart beating noisily in her chest and head. She sat up and opened her eyes to the newly decorated college dorm room she would be living in for the next few months. She was relieved it was a single, as she couldn't imagine explaining to a roommate her nightly rendezvous with the sinister and strange dreams she had been having. She slipped on her robe and quickly crossed the hall to the bathroom. She splashed cool water on her face from the faucet and looked at herself in the mirror. Get it together, Maddie. No time for the insane. She looked at the clean sink, thinking she would see some of the sticky candy-like blood on her hands or on the sink, but it was just porcelain shining back at her. Her revelry was broken by 3 girls entering the bathroom, giggling and making small talk. She smiled at them and was busy getting ready for the day when one of them skipped over to the sink to pucker her mouth. Oh, yeah, sorry. Skipped over to the sink to pucker her mouth so she could apply her gloss. She was looking at her lips and then looked over at Maddie and smiled, brown eyes dancing at her. Aren't you excited? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Kara. Welcome to Gramercy College, she said with a cheerleader enthusiasm. Maddie stammered, Oh, thank you. Yes, it is exciting, she replied. Kara started talking about all the classes she wanted to take, and and what she had heard about the professors. Occasionally, the other girls would chime in with a word or two, but Maddie could barely register what was actually being said or what was meaningful. She kept seeing the blood, the sticky candy substance that she swore she could still feel on her side where she had been laying. She cut off Kara mid-sentence. Well, thank you. Nice meeting all of you. See you in class, and slipped out of the bathroom. Once back in her room, she locked the door behind her for the moment and breathed in deeply. Why were her hands trembling now? And why was any of this happening? Did it have to do with last night? She wondered. What had happened last night? She closed her eyes and the room started to spin. She didn't have time for this. She had new classes to get to and an orientation that she'd been dreading for some reason since she read about it in the school's website. What had happened last night? She closed her eyes and the room started to spin. She didn't have time. I think you duplicated a paragraph there.
Oh, sorry.
As the room spun faster and faster, her head hit the pillow and she was back in that place, honing in on her memory of only a few hours before. The bar on the corner of Guadalupe and 8th Street had promised a night of fun with a new group of friends, or at least Maddie had hoped. But after drinking a beer and listening to the local band play, Maddie had found herself drawn to a stairwell on the side of the stage. She had pressed the old bar sign on the way in, and now, with the beer loosening up her form, she decided to see what was down there. The group barely noticed that she had left, and Maddie could hear them laughing a bit too loudly at times. As she descended the dark stairs, the boards creaked and shifted under her footsteps, and she was almost completely enveloped in darkness when she made it to the bottom of the stairs. Golden light cascaded out from a beautiful cherry red bar. The bartender looked up at her arrival and wiped the bar down and put out a napkin, beckoning her to sit. Maddie walked to the bar and slipped on to the bar stool. This is a gem, she exclaimed to him. That it is. Name's Mike, he replied as he offered her his hand. She shook his and looked him over. He was nice enough to look at, and maybe a little older than her. Madeline, she said, let me guess. You do not have your own signature drink, the one that you always order. She shook her head, her long brunette locks bouncing around her face. No, I do not have my signature drink as of yet. Well, maybe I can help you with that, Mike said as he looked her over, his eyes pausing at her blouse and a smirk on his face. Then he started making a drink for her. You look like the type that would like a little sugar in your drink, he started to say. Meanwhile, Maddie started looking around the bar. There was a theme of the Old West, with old photographs from hundreds of years ago all along the walls, including some reward posters. At the very end of what had turned into a pool hall was a series of odd iron bar cells coming out of the walls from exposed brick. It was cool down here, but not because of an air conditioner, but because they were underground. Maddie had been looking at the photos and the odd iron in the corner when he placed a pink drink on the napkin, complete with a skewered cherry. Oh, thank you, she said, and took a sip. It was nice, and she drank more of it, then stopped when she noticed she was being watched. It really is good, she started to say, and he shook his head. Forgive me, I hadn't recognized you at first, he said, taking the drink away. Excuse me? Maddie asked him, watching him take the drink away. I wasn't really expecting you, considering the time, he said, then noticed she had been staring at the cell. This used to be the old town jail. Many outlaws spent their time down here, either rotting away or waiting for the noose. Oh, Maddie replied, suddenly remembering all the dreams she had been having, especially lately. Here, try this, Mike said, sliding a shot of something amber to her. So, this is your trick, guessing who likes what to drink, she asked. He nodded. Something like that, he stated, wiping the bar with a sweep. Go on. Maddie took the shot to her mouth and smelled the whiskey, which stirred something within her. She downed the shot in one gulp, completely, then winced, but not as badly as she was expecting it to be. Mike just nodded. Knew it. Simple drink for a complicated girl. This made Maddie blush. Or was it the sudden shock of alcohol hitting her cheeks? Mike was cute. Not that she had any real experience with men. She slid out of the bar stool and started to walk over to the iron cells. Did you keep this for nostalgia? She asked him, sliding her hands along the thick, cold iron. Yeah, conversation piece. And it was a part of the town's history, as you are. She was caught off guard by the remark and was about to ask him when he brushed her bare back under her blouse, and she got an immediate shiver down her spine. He was touching her, and she wanted it, just as much as she feared it. His hand, warm to the touch, was on the small of her back, and she turned into his embrace. They looked into each other's eyes, and he leaned down to kiss her. But as she gripped the iron bar of the cell, the whole room spun, and she fell into his arms. Mike steadied her and helped her to sit down. But she was floating into another time, hearing horses and wagon wheels go by on the street above them. She could smell the dust of the ages and heard hard men laughing, a gun cocked, a shell casing falling to the floor. Mike steadied her and helped her sit down, but she was floating in. Okay, double paragraph again. She woke up moments later to her friends she had left upstairs, finding her in some random guy's arms, fluttering open her eyes and wondered what they thought of all this. There you are, Maddie. We were looking all over for you, one of them said, and turned to Mike, judging him up and down. I was here, Maddie managed to say, but couldn't get out much more when her friend swooped in and helped her stand up. Despite Mike's proximity, Yes, you were, and now you're going home, okay? She asked, not bothering with the fact that her friend was staring at some iron cells in the corner. As they pulled Maddie up to the stairs and turned to Mike, confused. Come back when you're ready. I will be expecting you, he assured her, going back to the bar and wiping down the bar again with a flourish. All right. Real quick, I heard something beep, and so I think there might be real quick. Scott dropped off and came back. Okay. Okay. I like this story, but there is definitely some stuff to work on here. Now, as I said, like I do copy paste. So as I'm reading this, like if I give you a critique about formatting and you're like, that's not how I wrote it, then just ignore my critique because I'm just reading how it was pasted. But one thing that you have to keep in mind, and I know you're coming from screenwriting, is that in prose, every time someone speaks, so every time you put quotation marks around an individual person talking, that is a new line, new paragraph. So you never want a paragraph, a single block of text that has two people speaking in it. So there are a few places in here, at least in my copy paste, where Maddie's talking, end quotes, a couple words, and then the bartender's talking in the same paragraph, and you don't want to do that. There was also, and I will tell you that I when I'm doing text messages or whatever, I never type. I always use voice to text. So, and I know a lot of people that use voice to text when they're writing, and so some of this might be that as well. I'm not. I don't know if you do that or not, but there was one point in here where where is it? You did like TWO instead of TOO or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that's just like none of that is important for this, right? Like everyone's bringing a first draft. It doesn't matter. I'm just like calling it out because I was literally just reading it. I think story-wise, the problem I have is I actually don't, at the end of it, know who Maddie is. Like, I'm getting the impression that she is important and that there's some kind of maybe time travel-y thing or paranormal thing or something like that going on because apparently she's important to the town's history and all that. But in terms of a character study in 1,500 words, I don't actually know. I don't come away knowing anything about Maddie. She everything that's given to me about her is a question. She doesn't have a particular drink that she likes. Okay, maybe she likes sugar with her drink. Oh no, maybe she likes whiskey. Oh, the whiskey burned, but not as bad as she thought. Like everything is very like kind of mid in terms of like there's nothing definitive. Now maybe if this was a full story, that's like the whole point is that Maddie isn't anybody. That Maddie doesn't have any definitive characteristics. But in terms of like a request for a character study, like I got through it and at the end didn't really know Maddie any better than I did at the beginning of it. So I'm going to stop talking now and pass it off to Wolf. And then, as always, at the end, Sophie, you'll be able to comment on everybody's critique. Wolf?
I am here. All right. So, I would want to say that with this piece, I strongly your screenwriting background really comes through, because what you have is a great visual language. I think that a lot of writers actually struggle with visual language and being able to direct the eye to like pieces of information. But I also think that because you have a great visual language does not, when you call it, translate into detail. Um, and so there is a difference between showing an object but then describing an object. And I know that sounds kind of crazy and kind of strange, but even I, as an artist, try to both mirror visual but detail language because they're two separate kinds of languages. Um, I I'm going to mirror some things that Neil said about this character being maybe the intentionality was for this character to not have a sense of self. Um, However, with that said, because this is a character study, I think that character studies lean towards having more a dynamic character with some dynamic personalities, so that way we can pick apart and find details about this character. I don't think that this piece has a lot of emotional hooks, and there needs to be some focus on emotional hooks. And there's some really interesting choices of words used in here that I wasn't loving. I know that you were repeating sticky candy for the blood the entire time, but it wasn't necessarily like concrete in my mind, and I wasn't necessarily like in love with the kind of repetition, because the prose was it was lacking detail, which sounds really weird. Again, because people assume that visualization and detail are the same thing. And so people, of course, would be like, oh, but it has a lot of detail. It has a lot of visual language, but it doesn't have enough detail. And that's all I'm going to say.
All right. Thank you, Wolf. I am going to have Vespera go next.
It felt kind of choppy, but I mean, it was very interesting. It sounds like something I would love to read. Um, I'm just gonna, yeah, the only thing I've could seen was that it was just choppy, but
Okay.
it definitely has promise. I was gonna say a little more time on this piece, and it will be freaking amazing.
I agree. I think the story is phenomenal. Scott, what do you have?
I'm glad you let me go last, because I missed out on a chunk of you reading it because I was messing around with some audio stuff. Yeah, I enjoyed the story, what there was of it. I agree, as a study of Maddie's character, I agree with oddly enough, I agree with Neil.
No.
Yes, it happens. Um, she's kind of a cipher, and that may be appropriate for her place in this time in this story. But it doesn't work for this exercise. Um, and that happens from time to time. It doesn't meet the brief, but this is not a game show. This is not a reality show. So taking it from a different angle, like Wolf said, I really liked the visual language. I liked the repetition of the sticky candy for the blood. That was a very visceral kind of descriptor, and I appreciated that. Certainly not going to be to everybody's taste, haha. But the other like Wolf said, the other visual cues in the story were great. We knew where she was in the room, we knew what she was doing more or less. We knew what the bartender was doing. It was really well mapped out. But it felt like, and this is the hardest part for these, is it felt like the middle of something. There's something that happened before this, and there's something that happened after this. And the point of this isn't to write a whole story, because that's hard enough to do in 5,000 words, much less 1,500 or 2,000. But I can't critique something that's not there. So I can't really speak to how it is as a story, but I can say that Maddie is weirdly magnetic to me. She's like the Lady in Red, the movie from the 80s. I think we at first we don't really know who she is.
Scott, only you and I
or-
saw that movie.
right, and I was much younger than you were when we saw that movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Wow. I honestly don't know what our age difference is, but anyway, so she's just very mysterious. We don't know what her purpose is. There's something weird going on here. This is very David Lynchy kind of territory, it feels like.
Oh,
so
hell
yeah,
yes.
I want to read whatever this becomes, if this is going to become something more. Beyond that, I can't say too much, but I think for what it is, it's well done.
Yeah, I agree that it'd be fun to see what this becomes. All right. Well,
Okay. So
Sophie, go ahead
yeah.
and give us your response.
So thank you for the David Lynch reference. That's phenomenal.
Well, especially considering his recent passing, like I think he was just top
Yeah.
of mind.
Yeah. This is this is part of the book that I'm actually writing. So it will get better.
We're
and
all a
it will
bunch.
be
We're all a
something-
bunch of cheating cheaters tonight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you get to, but I actually wrote this week for this study because I'm trying to get to know Maddie better too. She's kind of an enigma right now. But you really helped, and yeah, I duly noted on the grammar and all that stuff. And I understand the description versus, yeah, I understand all your points. So thank you so much for your help.
All right. Well, thank you, Sophie. Let me swing over here and take a look at who's next. I think it's Scott. Yep, Scott is
Which
the
means
next.
which means you're gonna skip over me and go to the next person.
Yes. So now we're going to. So Scott doesn't even get to read his piece tonight.
Yeah.
Here's what we'll do. We'll put Scott up and we'll give him we'll put my lower third with my books up at the top so that he can advertise me while he's talking.
Because
no,
you're
Scott,
a better writer. You're a better writer than I am. So.
I am not. I am absolutely not. That is like not even worth joking about.
So my cheating for this evening is this character, Father Ian McGowan, is a priest character who I have a couple of short stories out for, and I am planning a novel for him, and I will be repurposing tonight's story for use in that novel, because I could very easily see a scene like this taking place. So when I sat down to write today, yes, I wrote this today, because I was like, Jesus, I really need to write something for this character study today. I need to pick a character I know, and I need to pick something that might actually have a useful something. So anyway, Father Ian is my twisted nightmare version of Father Brown, if any of you are familiar with that character. Kind of a classic priest
From the
detective.
Frosty the Snowman song?
No. This is The Visitation. Father Ian McGowan had grown to dislike his own reflection. Ever since the incident with the evil spirit or demon or whatever it was, he was equal parts repulsed and frightened by not only what he would see there, but what he might. The new strands of silver hair served as one reminder. The possibility of his bright blue irises turning black was the other. So as he went about his morning ablutions, he did so with mirrors covered, almost as if he were in mourning. Once he was in his daily wear of pressed black Levi's, a black long-sleeved shirt, dog collar, and a pair of sturdy brogans, he felt more himself. He took his kit containing the things he'd need on some of the visitations: his stole, the Eucharist, some wine, anointing oil, holy water, his rosary with the St. Michael's medal, and a small English Gaelic Bible. He felt like the vet in All Creatures Great and Small, or some county doctor. Much like those people, the tools he carried were vital, more so than even he used to think. His first stop was at Mrs. O'Neill's place. It was close to the parish house, and she only wanted some time to chat over tea and take the sacrament. Her health was poor, and she wasn't always able to make it to Mass. Her little cottage was plain enough on the outside, save for the window boxes filled with little flowers. Everything was clean from the front walk to the rooftop. She wasn't able to do it all anymore, but she had a bit of money tucked away, as she often said, and paid for the workers who could. In reality, she was one of the wealthiest single women in town and was generous to a fault. He knocked on the door, a big smile on his face. He loved visiting the older woman. It was always a bright spot in his week. The door opened, and when it wasn't her, but a black woman whose name was Terry, who acted as a nurse to many of the elders in town, he was surprised. Is Mrs. O'Neill all right? I'm sorry to say she's taken ill, Terry replied in her northern England accent. I was going to ring you this afternoon to let you know. She gestured for him to come in. I'll fix you some tea while you go see her. She's awake and in her bed. Father Ian nodded and made his way to the little room where she and her husband had lain for 60 years before he passed. He could smell the usual odors of illness, rubbing alcohol, liniment, and that particular scent that some older people took on when they really weren't well. She looked so small in that four-poster bed. Hello, my dear, he said quietly, in case she had fallen asleep. Her eyes bright in spite of, or perhaps because of, her sickness. She nodded. Hello, Father. She pointed to the rocking chair that had to be twice as old as she was, but well made. Do sit. She coughed weakly into her hand. He did as she told him, but only after pulling the chair closer. He set his bag by his feet and opened it so everything was accessible. Now you've been a bit naughty, haven't you? He asked. How so, Father? She raised an eyebrow. I told you to stay healthy now, didn't I? And here you are in your sickbed. He winked at her. She laughed, and it turned into a cough that hurt his soul. Oh, I needed a laugh. Don't feel bad. He always wore his emotions on his sleeve. Concern knitted his brow in spite of his light-hearted tone. All right, but only because you say so. He brought out his stole, kissed it, and put it around his neck after a brief prayer. Do you feel like you can take communion? I'm sick, lad. I'm not dead. She tried to sit up a little, and he helped her. He blessed a wafer and a small silver cup into which he'd poured some wine. Then he gave her each of the elements, blessing her and asking God for health and strength for her. She had dribbled a bit of the wine on her cheek, and he dabbed at it with some tissue from the nearby table. Thank you, Father. It was so good of you to come. I'm not leaving just yet, so long as you aren't trying to get rid of me. He put away the elements and took out his Bible. Terry came into the room with a steaming cup. Tea with 2 lumps, as I recall. She handed it to Ian. Right as always. He smiled, leaving the Bible in his lap and taking the china cup from her. The dark liquid was good and strong, with a hint of sweetness. If you'll excuse me, I've got some cleaning yet to do. She nodded at her employer and Ian. She's such a good one. Miss O'Neill nodded weakly in Terry's direction. Don't know what I would have done without her. The Lord has been gracious to you. He thought about how disconnected he felt from God lately. The young mother who died from cancer and the troubles that his teacher friend Jared had been having at school contributed to that. The American was an atheist and sharp as a tack. They'd had many great talks over the last 2 years, and he'd helped Ian battle the evil spirit. Of course, now Jared has found ways to cope with that experience that weren't entirely healthy. Not that Ian was a man who could judge anyone for unhealthy coping mechanisms. And don't forget, young man, he's been gracious to you too, the older one retorted. I know your life must be filled with difficulties. I don't know if I've told you, but my brother was a chaplain in the army during the Second Great War. She had, in fact, and many times. I think you may have mentioned that. She snapped her fingers. Now, don't try to pretend I haven't. My memory is not what it once was. What I mean to say is, we couldn't have been closer, he and I. And in his letters, he said a good many things I think you might find comfort in. I want you to have them. I couldn't possibly. She hadn't made this offer before. That's too generous. Nonsense. I've practically read them to dust. I want you to find a way to preserve them, perhaps put them in a book if you think that'd help anyone else. There was that cough again. She took a drink of water with Ian's help. But mainly they're for you. He was young when he died from a disease that he got from missionary work in Africa. Not as young as you, but not as old as me. There are letters from that time, too. I'll treasure them and share them however I can. He could get Jared's help in figuring out how to do that. There must be a way to scan them in and turn them into an ebook or something. Thank you so much. Now read to me from the book for a few minutes, and then I will take my rest. You have others to visit today. Jared opened his Bible and read to her in Irish Gaelic from Psalm 46. By the time he had gotten to "Be still and know that I am God," she had fallen into an easy sleep. He carefully anointed her head with oil, prayed for her healing and peace, and carried his things, along with his teacup, out into the kitchen. Terry stood there, dabbing at her eyes. You are such a lovely man. She hugged him, nearly causing him to lose the cup. Then she let him go and took the fragile piece of china from him. He resisted telling her that he was just doing his job, which was true as far as it went, but also unhelpful. Call me if her health changes in either direction. You have my cell number. When she nodded, he smiled. They sat and prayed for a few minutes, and then he left to go to his next meditation.
Scott, it blows me away, like the diversity that you're able to write, and it makes me laugh because the piece I'm going to do tonight is my opening for a romance novel. I'm going to try to like play my hand at, but the fact of the matter is, no matter what I write, it always sounds just like me. And you have such diversity, and yes, I can hear your voice and everything, but you can switch styles, like genres and styles, and it's amazing to me. I definitely got a picture of a good, kind man that is imperfect in his own ways. um it's kind of a shallow character thus far. Like, I feel like I'm only surface deep. Now, I do like right at the beginning, you gave us something that was super interesting, for a priest. I'm assuming priest and not just general chaplain, um, based on some of the things. So when where is it? Um, once he was in his daily wear of pressed black Levi's, so jeans, not slacks, a long sleeve shirt, dog collar. So I'm picturing like goth kind of dog collar and a pair of sturdy
Joe
Brogans.
Joe polish
He
takes
felt
dry.
okay, so if we're not speaking, I'm gonna have people mute because thank you.
Dog collar is a phrase that some priests and other people often use for a clerical collar.
Okay, well, see, that was new information for me. Because that for a second I was like, oh, so he sounds kind of young and maybe a little like anti-establishment. But then we got into like his brother like being in the Second World War, and I was like, oh, that's a little weird. Yeah, I feel like the piece is good, and definitely like I sense that we've got like a good person here, like that is definitely comes through, and he's sentimental, but I don't get much deeper than that. And so I'm gonna give it to Wolf to kind of analyze it further, and maybe fill me in on something I'm missing.
Okay, Wolf is here, but Wolf had to like quickly like get his chips in his mouth. Okay, nobody wants to hear me crunch. Honestly, Scott, you want to know my personal opinion? This is my favorite piece of yours. I liked this one. I thought that it was very. I personally think that this you could really tell who this character was. I almost could feel his disillusionment inside of the actual narrative itself. There's something slow and kind of enveloping in this piece, and slightly like almost. I'm going to use a word that I don't necessarily mean, and it's going to be put in quotation marks that you can't see. But there's kind of a like lazy sense of duty in this piece, which I really like. I like this
I like
idea.
that.
Yeah. I feel like he's doing it and like he feels like he's responsible and has to do these things, but there's like an undertone in it that is just like I actually don't want to, or I'm disconnected from this, or that I don't feel this. And it's almost disingenuous too. I genuinely like this piece. I don't really have a lot to say about it because I genuinely am sitting here being like, yeah, I want more of this. So there you go.
All right. Thank you, Wolf. And once I turn off your lower third there, I'm going to pass it off to Sophie. Sophie Bueller.
Yep. Sorry, had to unmute. I loved it. It was interesting to see some, like I was able to visualize my neighbor as the old lady, because I have a neighbor like that. And I also actually, and she has a reverend who actually comes and gives her Eucharist and everything. So I was really on board with that. You did lose me at the dog collar. I was also going, wait, what's going on? But yeah, I want to know more. I want to know what he does after this. Like, I'm curious. So, but I don't have anything negative to say at all.
Right. Vespera.
I like this. Like, I could really envision, like, the priest, and this would actually be kind of like the show I watched. I think would be more interesting than Father Brown, because honestly, I have tried watching Father Brown, and Father Matteo is better, the Italian version. That's all I have to say, and I would definitely prefer yours over Father Brown It's really nice. I'm sorry. I have nothing negative.
Okay, well, since there's nobody to respond to comments, we're going to move on to the next.
So I'm glad that Wolf picked up on the sort of ennui, disillusionment. Like, so the story with Father Ian is he enjoys being a priest, but really only because he enjoys doing things for people. Not so much because he has a strong spiritual sense of duty. He lost that somewhere along the way. And I'm surprised that nobody brought up the evil spirit, demonic force that gets brought up in like the first couple of paragraphs. But he and his friend, the American teacher, have a confrontation with an evil spirit, and it breaks off a chunk of Father Ian's soul effectively, and he's still trying to get his head back in the game. And this is definitely going to be
It dries pretty fast.
him getting the process through the novel is going to be him getting back on the horse and having a reconnection with his spiritual side and a reconnection even with his good works side.
So I'll be honest with you, Scott. You said the entity, and so I grew up in Catholicism. So I'll be 100% honest with you. I my tismed because I have autism, and I took it so literal because that's how Catholics think. They're
Right.
like an evil spirit, and so I was just like, oh yeah, that's tracks. That's normal. And so my tism just railroaded that. I was just like, yeah, tracks.
The twist on this particular evil spirit is it's an Irish
Cool.
evil spirit called a fetch.
Oh, I know what a fetch is.
Yeah, so you should read his first story called Fetch, which you can find on Amazon. But plug. Yeah, I really love Father Ian because he's got this same sort of spiritual questions I often have, and he struggles in a lot of ways I often do. And yeah, he's just a good what's the word? Self-insert character. Except I'm not an Irish priest. So thanks, guys.
All right. Well, great story as always, Scott. And next up for reading is Vespera. Are you reading your own piece tonight?
Yeah, I was gonna be evil and almost say you, but I think I'll do it. All right, so this is called Coup de Regale. Trigger warnings because somebody is entrapped and because of who the person is who is entrapped. You'll be able to figure it out. Hands covered in sackcloth curled around thick metal bars. Hello, the man called out. I'm aware you hear me, Madame of the Regale. Tell me, dear mystery, why am I here? The tap of heeled shoes echoed against gray stone floor until the slide and crunch of grass became apparent. She traveled away from the faint gray-chipped marble columns to a circular open-air venue with a stage. The woman covered in darkness walked toward a cage. Sorry. The woman covered in darkness walked toward a cage on a stage. A square entrapment sat upon a chipped, red, painted wooden stage. Behind the cage is an ever-shifting backdrop of different skies. Two thick rows of chairs split down the middle stood before the stage. You know why you're here, Madame Regale spoke. I have absolutely no idea, for I am a good man who did good deeds. Why must I merely listen to my voice? Does it not enchant you? The voice, a pretend soft melody that rose into different furious pitches. He cleared his throat as he pressed his sack body against the silver metal bars. Did I not fascinate you with everything I stood for? Did you not place your hope for a lingering moment upon me? Said the caged man. Hope, what a foul misrepresentation. Madame Rigel walked up to the cage, her hands slid around 2 bars, not through, around. She squeezed them, creating imprints of her hands in the metal. Your deeds cannot be forgiven. I am being misrepresented, the man cried, spewing out sand. You viewed my statement. You are acquainted with me. I would never. I am unfamiliar with you. The dreams and the illusions are all I comprehend. A dream no longer there, a person no longer to be admired. But admiring those in power was always a dangerous thing. That was a lesson I should have grasped. She released the bars. You cannot keep me here in a cage for public viewing. I have done nothing but been a generous soul, the man of rough cloth pleaded. Look around you. Who is it here to meet with you? Madame Rigel spread her arms out unbelievably wide. The sackman glanced around at the sparse open space. Why are you doing this? What is your benefit? Do you believe this makes you a saint? This makes you like me, he snarled. No. No one will come to visit you. You possess no freedom anymore. Your voice and lines can taint no one here. You cannot spread your falsehoods and foulness here, said Madame Rigel. Oh, you misunderstood. You misunderstand. That is where you are mistaken, the man sighed. You do not even bloody know me, only the image I project, the illusion I adorned. Need I remind you it was you who desperately wanted it to be real? How you loved me for a year and a half, even creating fiction about me, trying to ascertain my attention. And what a fool that girl was, having faith in a stranger she yearned to understand, admiring someone for the things they stood for, only to end up in shambles. All you had to do was be a decent person, Madame Rigel spoke. All you had to do was be faithful to your ideals and not a hidden monstrosity. She stomped her foot. You never even read my work, but watched a show and took a class you never finished because you found my voice a catalyst into your mind. He slowly untied, then twined at the ends of his fingers. He held his hands down, allowing the grains to fall to the bottom of the cage. Hush, Madame Rigel demanded. You do not get to shush me. The grains stained the shiny gray metal bottom, smearing the fine dust like coal. You're smarter than that. Disregard all the rumors. I am a person who is safe. They're all aiming to ruin me. No need to be such a pessimist. What did you do? Madame Rigel cried. Look at your cage, the place you belong. It's all dirty. Dirty like your once upon a time admiration of me. Dirty like the filthy deeds I did. Are you jealous, you ugly bird? Like you would ever get my attention, the charming voice echoed. In Madame Rigel's ear, jealous of what temptation I brought your mind. Madame Rigel spun around and slammed her fist into the sackman's flat body. The tan woven cloth that held 2 beady eyes and a mouth spat dark particles. When did you slip away? She raged. Those poor people, the madam wailed. You have not even met them. Stop pretending you care. You're just as greedy as the rest jumping on the hype train, said the sackman through gritted, rough lips. You see, you believe you stand for things, believe you are a voice for others, but I'm aware of the truth. I'm a figment, a dream you created for this detestable little scenario, to prove you are better than me, when in fact, you're not. You're just an insignificant little bug who represents nothing but trying to ride a wave. Madame Rigel fell to her knees. No, this is about me not wanting a dream who is a nightmare to have any influence. This is about my heart being shattered after thinking there was someone I can idolize. I wanted to idolize you. After just discovering you, I wanted to brag and talk to others about this person who has such a charming voice, who is creative, who is safe, and has imagination. I wanted to be like you, providing safe spaces in my work. And I have no idea if I can accomplish that. How pathetic. The sackman fades completely away. Madame Rigel sat down, her arms linked around her knees. You are wrong. I am better. It was a bit rough.
I'm before we get into like the actually important stuff, I am going to just point out, like, you have some formatting stuff going on here as well in terms
Yeah.
of especially having multiple people in quotes in the same paragraph. Like, it's just what you want to do is just train yourself that before you hit open quote, you hit enter. Like, it just, you always need to start open quotes on a new line, and then when you close the quotes, it's a new line again. Like, unless you're saying she said, he said, whatever, but like, you don't have two people talking in the same block of text.
Yeah.
It's just formatting. It's not important. That's not what we're here for. In terms of story, I think you have a compelling and interesting idea here. I love the back and forth. I love the setting. I love the characters such as they are. I don't actually feel like I get to know through action like what kind of people, and Madam the main character, I definitely like get that she's aggressive, she's controlling, she wants to, like, she wants to be in control of a situation, but um I just, there's a lot of dialogue back and forth, but not a lot of action, other than, like, the only thing that sticks out of my head is her, like, slapping or hitting the other character. So I don't feel like I'm getting a sense of who she is deeper and more kind of like fully rounded. But again, it's not as though I don't miss things. So I'm going to have Sophie come up, and she's going to talk about what she got from it.
I enjoyed it. I want to know more about this guy in the cage. As your description of him was a little bit, it was quick, and I'd like to get a visual idea of the burlap and that kind of thing. But I liked it. I hope it's part of a book or something that you're working on. You know, yeah, I don't have anything, nothing critical. Grammar aside, you know, it's a first draft, and we're all just writing here, so good job.
All right. Thank you, Sophie.
Yeah.
Scott.
So something about this seems really familiar. Not in like any bad kind of way. There's just something about these archetypes, and it almost feels like a reimagining of something. Like, I got strong Wizard of Oz kind of vibes off of this, and from like the names and some of the descriptions. But overall, like, putting that aside, because that could be a red herring on my part, I could be way off base. I got a strong sense of who Madame Regale was as a person. She clearly is a writer or a creator, and she idolized this guy and built him up and was disillusioned. And ordinarily, when people are disillusioned, they don't kidnap somebody and put them in prison. So she's definitely A, in a position of power to do that, and B, is more than a little harsh. But but then again, we don't know exactly what this man did. And he strikes me as like very much like a Satan figure, like a tempter. Um, because on the one hand, he's like, um, he's playing the one who's been hurt, but clearly he's done something to be put in the place that he is. So, but he even admits, um, do you believe this makes you a saint? This makes you like me. So there's something that is less than saintly about him. And so even I think he admits, yes, he did something to be put in the situation that he's in. So I get some strong like outlines of these characters. Now what I want is those outlines to be like filled in with some more substance. And from a strictly fantastical point of view, I love that like this being that she's got in the prison is not human. Don't know what he is, but he's like a beanbag or a straw man or something. So there's a lot of metaphor, symbolism going on in here, and I think it just needs some more finishing touches, some more detail, and I think you really have got something here. So I got a stronger sense of character, I think, than Neil did. But I agree that there's a little bit more to just really give it that finish that you want it to have. Of course, if this is or is to become something bigger, I'm sure we're going to get that. So, yeah, good stuff.
All right, that brings us to Wolf.
All right. So first, I'm going to say something that has nothing to do with the piece, and it's just a piece of advice in general. Vespera, when you're reading your pieces, slow down. We do not need to rush all of our like narration, and so it was a little hard to follow because we weren't slowing down, and we were just kind of like, okay.
Sorry, I have a lot of anxiety when I read and a lot of excitement.
It's
You're all
okay. It's
good.
okay.
I understand. I have a lot of anxiety too. It doesn't sound
You know,
like it.
you know what helps? You know what helps, Vespera?
Bourbon.
Yes,
Like
courage.
just because I'll tell you what, like when I'm reading, especially like when I'm reading a piece that I haven't, I used to try to read all the pieces before group. And that became very non-sustainable. So I read along on my website along with everybody else during the readings. But if I'm reading for someone, like tonight I read for Sophie, I'm reading it for the very first time while I'm reading it live. And so it's about like relaxing, taking a deep breath, and like reading really slowly so that like I am not like tripping over myself, because otherwise I trip over my own words constantly, especially like when I'm reading to my kids and stuff. I totally get where you're coming from in terms of nerves and anxiety and all that stuff. I literally have an anxiety diagnosis, so I'm with you. But yeah, Wolf's right. Just like take a breath and just like slow down.
Yeah. So about this piece in general, the biggest word that comes to my mind is clarification. I think that you have really good metaphorical language. I think that this piece has something going for it. I also agree with Scott that it feels like an outline and needs more substance. It's I think the thing is that like the metaphorical language is there and it's nice, but the metaphorical language is not backed up by bones of specification and clarification. And so I was having a hard time holding on to this sand creature because sometimes he had lips, and I'm like, I don't understand. Like, you're describing it in a human way, but then you are also describing it in an inhuman way. And with clarification and specification, what do you call it? It helps solidify the metaphorical language. The best way that I can explain this is, and I hate, I don't have a good piece anymore, but I am going to bring up. I don't want to, but I'm going to, and I'm going to vomit a little bit in my mouth. But Sandman does a really good in their books about this because Dream himself is a dream within a dream. And so there is a way to write metaphorical language with some grounding. And I feel like the grounding of the metaphorical language in this piece was just floating everywhere. And I understand that this was rough, a rough draft, and we're all beginning, but that's something to keep a hold of. Otherwise, I think I like it. That was really poor wording on my part. Wolf's brain has decided to train crash 5,000 different sentences all together and then glue paste it together. Um, I also agree with Scott that
Glue paste it. You're gonna glue
yes,
paste it together.
yes,
Should I tape cock it as well?
yes, exactly. Put some gum pieces in there. Just help Wolf keep his thoughts together. Um, what do you call it? I also agree with Scott that I feel like the person with the most characterization is Regalia. She's obviously a visionary. She obviously has like inspiration. She has admiration. She clearly has passion. She's also little unhinged. It's okay. We're all a little unhinged. We're all not mentally adjusted around here. Um, and I feel honestly, I can't believe I'm gonna say this. The sack bean creature actually has the least amount of characterization. Like, all I know about the sand creature is that it's evil. Like, that's, that's it. But yeah, so I think really that this piece could really do with some more substance and more clarification and more specification and keeping things more grounded. There we go. I succinct my thoughts.
All right. Thank you, Wolf. Vispira, go tell us all to go to hell.
Why would I do that? I mean,
You're allowed. You're totally allowed to.
Yeah.
no, it was very rough. I like threw that together in like 2 hours and kept editing it. And I'm like, it's not getting anywhere near where I want it.
To be yeah, let's all be fair. Vespira messaged me. She texted me this morning and she said, I was going to submit for this week and I just never got around to it and I just didn't get it done. I'm sorry. And I wrote her back and I said, I will take your submission up to an hour before showtime. So, like, if you want to do it, go ahead and do it. And she responded by sending me a piece like an hour later. And when she sent it to me, she said, excuse me, I'm sorry. When she sent it to me, she said, I may edit this. And then like 2 hours later, she sent it again, like updated. And I think it was even updated as I was reading along. Like, it looked like it was even updated a little after she sent the second one. So she really like did write this today, like for group. So and I think it's great. I think it felt a little shallow to me in terms of characterization, but it wasn't that there wasn't anything there. It just, I wanted more. But
So I don't know what it is about me on these nights, but I write so much headcanon for y'all's stories. I am doing some incredible heavy lifting for you guys.
What's your headcanon?
Scott, where the hell are you?
Like this, like I said, this is like a twisted, like.
Scott, did you turn your camera off?
Oh, not on purpose.
There's something weird. It's weird. Anyway,
I don't know why it's off, but so like this is like a dark carnival version of Wizard of Oz. This is like the Scarecrow did something awful to Dorothy. I mean, Mrs. Regale, come on, Dorothy Gale.
Gale, yeah.
You know, something was cooking in the back of your brain.
Yeah.
It may have been meth. It may have been meth, but I'm not judging. But
Only
yeah,
meth?
there's only meth. There's and of course the sack and the grains coming out of it, like that's a scarecrow. I mean, that's you know. So yeah, I'm filling in some blanks that obviously you didn't leave, but feel free to use it and abuse it if it's useful to you.
Just don't abuse the meth.
No. Abuse the metaphors, not the meth.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We're gonna finish up with my piece.
That's all for tonight. Everybody go home.
Yeah, yeah. Scott's like, okay, everyone sign off now. I'm gonna read my piece. This is I did write it this week for group, but it also I think is going to be serving as the opening to my my new romance novel that is also a thriller. So a thriller romance novel. My goal is to subvert all the romance tropes and get away with it. That is my goal.
Good luck.
Yeah, and the important part of that is get away with it. I want to get
Can
away
I
with
front? Can I front load some critique here?
it. Having read it already?
No, just the title.
Okay.
Do any of your characters have normal names?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's my front loaded critique.
Okay. So yes, this is Madam Viral Youngblood Esquire. Kelsey stared at me disapprovingly as I snorted the line of crushed up Adderall off my desk. What? I said more defensively than I meant to. It's not like I paid for it. She wagged her tail, stood up, and walked up to the front of the office to sit in the sun. I noted her derision and brushed it off. She'd feel differently tonight when she wanted to be fed. Besides, who was she to judge? She had it easy. Her food was provided for her, twice a day, and not just a can of slop dumped in a dirty dish a la the opening scene of Back to the Future. No, I mixed her dry kibble with an organic powdered mixture of chicken broth, oats, and plant protein and fiber. Then I stirred in either fresh rotisserie chicken or shredded cheese, blended that with warm filtered water, and voila, Michelin star dog food delivered morning and night for her to slop up between naps. I, on the other hand, worked 2 jobs trying to keep myself in a tax bracket one peg above my loser fast food employee clients. They were pathetic and mostly couldn't pay, even my discounted rates. They were always trying to negotiate alternative forms of payment. The men, such as they were, boys really, with sad attempts at facial hair, all wanted to sleep with me. They seemed to think that their cocks were as good as gold and couldn't understand why I wouldn't want them to deposit their cum instead of their cash. The women just cried me a sob story and leaned on the sisterhood to convince me that I owed them my services. All of them thought that paying actual money for my time in and out of the courtroom was an absurd notion, so I frequently got whatever chemical substance they had buried in the bottom of their second-hand pleather Forever 21 handbags. Was there an irony in them paying their lawyer in drugs to get them off of their possession charges? Maybe, but not one that Alanis Morissette would put in a song. It was more like the universe mirroring itself in a shallowly romantic way. Ultimately, the shit they gave me, the shit they gave me was the fuel I needed to get through the job that actually paid the rent on the strip mall storefront where I hung my shingle. Being a lawyer isn't as glamorous as people think it is. Too many episodes of Suits giving folks the idea that it's all Manhattan skyrises and tickets to the Met. The truth of the matter is, it's more like Better Call Saul. Most lawyers don't work in high power luxury firms. Most of us are grinding it out, case by case, in dingy offices you probably don't even notice when you drive by them. It's a joke that skeezy lawyers advertise on bus stop benches, but in reality, most of us wish we could afford an ad on a bench. My business comes from word of mouth, which means not only do I have to accept Xanax and expired birth control as payment, but I have to do a fucking good job for those clients. There's a reason I've never been able to quit my night job. Kelsey stood up and pointed her nose through the window at the parking lot and stifled a bark. She wasn't much of a guard dog, not in any protective way, but she was a good warning signal. She was good at letting me know when something wasn't quite right. "What is it, girl?" I asked, standing up from behind my desk and wiping what was left of the powder on the carpet for the cleaning lady to vacuum up later. She panted and paced back and forth a few times before coming to stand nervously behind me. I bent at the knees and scratched her behind the ears, watching as a man pushed through the yellowing glass and jingled the bell above my door. The sight made my stomach drop. This man should not be here. This man could not be here. This man walking in meant my whole world was about to collapse. All right. I am going to let Wolf run feedback for me this week.
Okay, I am here. It was awful. I'm gonna go. Good night. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm now in a mood. Apparently, everybody. I had caffeine, and so now Wolf is gonna be sarcastic the entire time. I liked the subversion with the dog named Kelsey. He's just given a freaking human name, which is freaking wonderful. The description of the dog food felt now you are peering into my life, Neil. Okay, that I'm that dog owner. I'm like, I'm gonna give you raw food, I'm gonna mix it with your dry kibble, and I make sure that this thing. So I greatly enjoyed that paragraph. I also the line that made coffee come out of my nose was where was it? I even had it like thing. Ah, yes. It's a joke that skeezy lawyers advertise on bus stop benches, but in reality, most of us wish we could afford an ad on a bench, and I'm sitting here having coffee out of my nostrils. Um, I don't want this to be a romance. God. I just like it as it is, a mystery and things like that. I really can tell what this kind of character is. It's very interesting because this is a very like a character that obviously cares more about their pet than themselves. Um, you know, I'm the same way. We're not going to talk about it. Um, And so I think that you have a strong sense of character here. I think that the character is, what do you call it? They're really coming out. But you are correct, and this is going to be my little critique. Your characters kind of have an echo of each other, but that's just your writing like style and your writing voice. You always have like really good characters who have a strong sense of wit and a strong sense of sarcasm and a strong sense of humor. Um, but I mean, if it's your bread and butter and it's not broken, you don't need to fix it. I'm gonna go now.
No, you're in charge. You have to.
Oh, I'm in charge. Charge. Oh, I see. Ah, Wolf has the power. Okay. Let's go with Sophie first.
Okay. I enjoyed it. I also take care of my animals better than I take care of myself. My cats will attest to that completely. So I get that. I love the characterization of that. I love the development of it. I want to know who's at the door. Like I'm like you caught me. And now I want more. Like seriously, who's at the door? My only critique would be when when the narrator was talking about men, it didn't sound like a woman. So I'm not sure if I think you need to work a little bit on that. It sounded like you as a woman, and it so you're gonna have to work a little bit with that. But other than
Yep.
that, that's my only issue.
Thank you, Sophie.
Yeah,
I
sure.
agree. Yeah, it was wonderful. I agree with you. It was, yeah. Yeah, I was having a hard time with the gender with the character too. Let's go, Vespira.
I have nothing wrong to say. Like, your writing is always so evocative of like the type of characters you do. Like, they have this weird sense of like tarnished strength. Like, I've been through shit. Excuse my language. Like, the world has really like hit me in all the wrong ways, but I'm still here and I got things to do. I really like that.
Thank you very much. I like how I'm just thanking everybody for Neil's sake right now. Neil and his imaginary friends, since all of us are black screens with little initials, we might as well just be like the
My
consensus.
appearance is not so charming tonight, so I was gonna do the camera.
Yeah, we're
Same
we're
here.
gonna have to have a conversation about this moving forward. This is YouTube, like it is. This is not radio, but yeah.
Are, yes. Are you good? Are we good, Miss Shira? Do you got more to say?
I have nothing more to say.
Scott, you're up.
I would like to state for the record that I don't know why my camera is not showing my very handsome face, but
I
because
was
it is
having
not.
some tech difficulties earlier, so
Yeah. So I would love to say bad things about this. I really would. I will piggyback off of Sophie and say that you're definitely going to have to work on your woman voice. What was it that character said? How do I write like a woman? I just imagine a man and take away all sense of responsibility and whatever it was. No, that is not how you write a woman. It is tough writing from the point of view of someone who is radically different from you, either in gender or socioeconomic status or race or whatever culture. It's not impossible. It's just a challenge, and I think you're up to that challenge. I just think you need to get some people like 3/5 of our panel here who have some experience with that point of view. So, or 2.5/5. I'm not sure how that math works out, but that was me trying to be clever, Wolf. No offense intended.
No, it's good. I'm non-binary.
Well, then okay, that's pretty much how that splits up. But yeah, like you subverted expectations like 4 times in the first 4 paragraphs, I think. And I think that's great. Keep doing that throughout the work, and you'll keep your readers on your toes. I still have yet to actually, even though I have both of your books in my library, I have actually to read anything of yours other than what we read on our nights together. not just these nights, but our special nights together.
Yes.
And
Scott,
but
you're
I
not
would,
supposed to tell people about those.
but no, I like this character, and I think that I'd be ashamed to tell you what my own pet habits are. It's a lucky thing that I have two people in this household that are far better at taking care of our animals than I am. It's only because I have a lot of isms that make me not a great caretaker. Um, but yeah, she doesn't really care much for anybody, so it's hard to imagine her loving someone. So I can't wait to see what this romance is like, because this person is incapable of romance, which is yet another subversion expectation. So, um, yeah, you developed a strong sense of who she is. I just think that the sense of who she is needs some work, um, before it's going to be a good representation of who she needs to be for the sake of this story, if that makes sense. Also, I wanted to twist your head off just a little bit, um, just a little bit, when you said uh, a sense of irony, but not one that Alanis Morissette would put in a song. None of the things in that song are irony.
I know. You know what? I know that. Scott, first of all, like you and I are on the same page. I have said for years that the only thing ironic about that song is that she made millions of dollars off a song based on a word that she doesn't know the definition of. Like
Right.
that is actually ironic. Like that
But
is
for
an
you to
actual irony.
but for you to perpetuate that is
I know, but it's
like
it's
nails
so
on a
simple.
chalkboard.
Like
Um,
it's just I know you and we're the only ones.
we are, but otherwise, good job as usual. Just change the character so that it's more like a woman, and change all of the text so that it's better written.
Okay, well that's what I was looking for, Scott. Just throw it away and start from scratch, and it'll all be good in the end.
Is that all? God.
Well, I mean, there are words. Just put them in a better
There,
order.
yeah, yeah. So I
Hey,
went
this
to
just kind of reminds me of like the one Jewish Ben Shapiro saying that getting invited out to the street after insulting Caitlyn Jenner, like that wasn't womanish. And I'm like, you've never met a woman from the inner city.
I I went to a dueling piano night at a bar one time, and I'm such a jackass. I always go up to the dueling piano when you get to request a song, and I hold my 20 out and I go, "Can you play me Lakeshore Drive?" And the one guy that was honest with me, like looked at me and he said, "I know all the notes. I just don't know what order they go in." I was like, "That's so good. That's so good." Yeah. So with the dog food, um, I literally was just describing what we do for our dog. Like, and I grew up in a family that we didn't have a dog, we had cats, and we literally fed them like the beginning of Back to the Future. Like in the morning, you opened the can of cat food, you tipped it over, and you dumped it in a bowl, and you walked away, and that was the cat's food for the day. And my partner, like the dog at this point is such a picky eater. Like if you don't mix something good in with it, like she won't eat. And so she gets dry kibble with this, like it's this organic powder that my partner orders, that you put a full scoopful in, that's like 2 tablespoons or whatever, and then you add water and stir it up, and then you add and then she goes to Costco and she's like, "I need to go get Phoebe a chicken at Costco." And she goes and buys like the dog a rotisserie chicken at Costco that we like pull apart and put in her food. And if we run out of that, then I open up like the shaker Parmesan and put it in there.
Look,
And and the dog, that's the dog's food twice a day, and it's like, it's ridiculous. And so I was reading this to my partner, and she got like really offended. She was like, oh, I'm so getting called out in your writing. And then she's like, oh, so this is this whole thing going to be about me? And I was like, no, it's just like talking about our dog.
Like, we have cats and dogs, so I know that dogs will eat cat poop. So
Yeah.
I don't go the extra mile for feeding them anything in particular other than just a very nutritious, balanced, good quality dry dog food.
Yeah.
That's never made
So-
any sense to me.
But beyond that, this is my first attempt at writing a female main character, and so it is going to be a challenge. And so I appreciate the acknowledgement that like it doesn't sound female yet, and I will definitely be leaning on, you know, all the people, all the female people in my life to give me feedback and stuff. I actually added a bunch of stuff in there today to try to like lean into the like, this is going to be a romance novel kind of thing. So a lot of the stuff about the guy, her talking about her male clients and like their attitudes and stuff like that, was very much like me trying to like just add something in that like foreshadowed or leaned into this idea of there being like some spice to the book. But that being said, yes, it is difficult to write a character that is not your lived experience, and the main character of this book is a woman, and there's no way around that. And so I'm going to have to work on that voice, and I'm going to definitely have to lean on a lot of female author friends to help me like make sure that I'm not doing that poorly.
Thank you.
Good deal.
So I appreciate that feedback.
Yes.
If my card happens to be in
What do you call it? Neil, you mentioned something earlier about feedback on my piece real quick, and I forgot to
Mhm.
address it, and then I had a moment of ADHD. The reason why Quirius's name was the only thing said is because the things in brackets was the video. Actually, I saved you. I was actually going to do images for this. I did not do that.
I did see that message. Was that on Discord or
Yeah, it was on Discord.
I like, they all blur together. I can never tell if it's on TikTok or Discord or what anymore. But I did see those messages, and I chose to ignore
I don't know
them.
why I had it.
Because I was like, oh my God, Wolf. But also like I have to figure out a new way of like posting the submissions anyway. But yeah, when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, Wolf, you're gonna do that to me. And you know I would have done it for you. But I was very glad when you backed out of that.
Yeah, I saved you. It's all good.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You're my favorite. But all right.
But
Does
you want to know? You complimented you paid me a great compliment when you said that I can write in all of these various and sundry ways. What you're doing is how I got to be able to do all of those. So what you're doing is the first step in, because I've written, I cannot tell you how many tens of thousands of words I've written in different voices and different genres and different scenes and scenarios. So that's the only way you can do that is by writing more different stuff.
Mhm.
Well, once again, I neglected at the beginning. I will get this format down eventually, but I neglected at the beginning to have us introduce ourselves. So I am going to take this time to have people introduce themselves and plug anything that they're interested in plugging. So Sophie, you're going to go first. Tell us about yourself and plug whatever you're plugging.
Okay. Sophie, filmmaker, writer, lives in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Echoes, my debut novel, is coming out this fall.
All right. Scott, even though you don't have a camera, you want to talk to
Yeah,
us about?
Scott Roche, multi-genre author. You can find my books at details about my books at scottroche.com. You can also find my Substack at rochesomniverse.substack.com and twostepsfromhell.substack.com. No additional characters or punctuation in any of those words because Substack doesn't allow that kind of nonsense. So it's just all put words run together. So free fiction at both of those Substacks, and also have a Patreon that you can find by going to my website as well.
Scott, just while I've got you here, I don't have anything after your name on your lower third, but it sounds like you do have books available. Is that true?
Oh yeah, lots of books.
Okay, so can you send me an email just with what you want on your lower third?
I did include that on my email to you this afternoon.
Did you? I must have missed that.
Indeed.
I'm sorry. I will look at that. Sorry about that.
I read the brief, sir.
Okay. It's my fault then, and that is not unexpected. Yeah, no, clearly. Wolf.
Hello. Okay, this is Wolf. Wow. All right. This is Wolf. Okay, everybody. Wolf cannot talk apparently and can't brain. I'm Wolf Lovelace, aka the Father of Nightmares. My first book, Shadow Don't Scream, is out on Amazon Kindle right now. It basically asks the question: is a bystander culpable for the crimes that they witness? Yes. What do you call it? I'm also currently on TikTok right now. I'm going to be doing a live show once a week now. Basically, with my characters, Nathaniel and Spencer. I actually did it yesterday, and that really worked out really well. People were asking the characters, Nathaniel and Spencer, questions, and they were answering them. They were bickering like an old married couple. It was great. It was wonderful. They said some really hilarious stuff. I hope to God they don't get me banned. Let's see. And you can find me on TikTok and Substack right now. I'm working on my own website, and I think that's all the business things.
All right. Thank you. Vespera, tell us about yourself and what you're plugging. We cannot
you
hear
muted?
you.
Muted.
Mute.
Oh no, I'm muted.
There you go.
There you go.
Anyway, my name is Vespera. I write practically mostly fantasy. I am trying my hand out in other genres. Right now, what's plugged in is my poetry book that's going to be coming out in June. It's called Childish. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And I am, let's see, I have a lower third here too. I am Neil Christensen. I am the author of 2 noir thrillers, Dark White and Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey, both vigilante thrillers that take place in the corrupt, dark underbelly of Chicago. I am working on a third in that series called Bishop Church, and I am also now working on this romance novel that'll probably be the next thing that comes out. That will be Madam Viral Youngblood Esquire, at least for now. I have a Substack, I have a Patreon, I'm on TikTok, I have on Instagram, I'm on Blue Sky, all of this stuff. You can find it all like in the links in the bios. My website is gavingale.com, GAVINGAYLE.com. And if you go to my Patreon, you can order the dime store special edition of Malcolm Karma. It is a trade paperback size. So like standard 5x8 size, trade paperback size. Tiny, fits in your pocket. It's got a weathered matte cover, and that is available Everyone that is ordered is not only signed but is individually hand numbered as well. So you can order those by subscribing to my Patreon, even the free tier. You don't have to pay for the tier. You just subscribe to the free tier, and you can order the special edition of Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey. That is a wrap then for tonight. Thank you everyone that submitted. It was amazing. I loved all the stories. We've got a really good group brewing up here on YouTube, and anyone on YouTube that is seeing this that wants to join the group, we've got spaces. So just go ahead and contact me, and we look forward to working with you on BookTube Writers Group. And I will have a prompt out tomorrow, because Wolf will remind me if he doesn't see one by the time he wakes up in the morning.
Yeah, I probably will. You know, what you meant was your BookTube radio show. No, I'm kidding. I'll think about doing a camera. I have a lot of face dysphoria is the issue, and sometimes I have like depersonalization. My face doesn't feel like my face, and it's very triggering for like.
I'm pretty sure you can like turn off like so that you don't see yourself, but also you are a very good-looking young man, Wolf, and everybody would be happy to see you. If you're not comfortable, you don't have to do it. I'm not pushing anyone. I'm just reminding people that we are in fact on a video platform.
If people buy my book, Wolf will turn on his camera.
Fair enough. I have read Wolf's book more than once now, and I highly recommend it. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you next Thursday here on BookTube Writers Group.
Okay.